What's up, everyone? Mike McCarthy's out. You know, that's what happens when I go to a bar and try and forget my troubles and go and see some live music, hear some standards, some classic jazz. But no, Mark Murphy's got some other ideas. So, salut, people. Let's try this. Take two. Sorry about the last stream. That was some BS. Mateo says he's sad. I'm sad, Aaron. I'm sorry to hear that. But it was time. I mean, it was time last week. And to be honest, it was probably time a little while ago. But birthday present for A-Rod. Eric, I just said the exact same thing on Twitter. I said, clearly, Mark Murphy wanted to give Aaron Rodgers his birthday present on his actual birthday. He didn't want to wait. So I understand that. He's a generous man. And speaking of Mark Murphy, this puts him on the clock. His time, his stamp on the football side of things begins now. Clearly, they wanted to get out ahead of the hiring, firing schedule, season, etc. They want to make some calls without it blowing up. So, all right. Mike McCarthy out. Joe Philbin in. Joe Philbin, because anytime you can elevate a man who was the head coach of the Dolphins and coached them to a losing record in his tenure, you got to do it. Inevitable for sure, but not like this. Mateo, I mean, I get it. If they want to start making calls, they want to get out ahead of the hiring kind of cycle, I get why they want a month in advance, so to speak. But it doesn't do anything for them on the field this year, that's for sure. I mean, maybe they galvanize the offense a little bit because Mike isn't there. Philbin calls the plays, etc. But, Lord, today was freaking putrid. Crosby unknowingly put the bow tie on Mike's career. He might have put his own bow tie on his own career in Green Bay. I mean, a 49-yard field goal, I don't care what the snap, blah, 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 that's still a kick he should make. The hold was fine. Like, all of that. I mean, Crosby has missed a lot of kicks this year. And if you expect everything to be perfect every single time, you shouldn't be a kicker in the NFL. And Crosby's being paid way too much money to stick with him if that's what is required. Does Mike get to clean out his office? I would suspect so. Hi, Aaron. Hi. How are you? Scooter McLean memory. Yikes. Everybody, Corey Banky's here, so be on your best behavior. The boss is in the house. It's sad it took such a humiliating game. I tend to agree, but that's what it takes sometimes. I mean, I said last week McCarthy should be fired. After a month of close losses, most of which were a direct result of Mike McCarthy's kind of bumbling the head coaching position and the calls he needed to make, whether it was play calling, game management, etc., coupled with the toxic relationship he has clearly with his quarterback. It was more than time. The look at the holder was unwarranted. Hey, Crosby's just following in the footsteps of their great $4 billion quarterback Aaron Rodgers, who loves to show people up on the field of play any chance he gets. Even though he's underthrowing guys, throwing behind guys, etc., blah, 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 Aaron Rodgers can do no wrong. But listen, we still got a 1% chance of the playoffs. That's what I'm talking about. Never say die. Is that Banky? Is that his burner account? Christmas came early. Bob Gould. Christmas came early in the Gould house, apparently. Do we need a new kicker? Maybe. Nagler's never right. Matthew, you got that right. I never thought in a billion years Mark Murphy would make this move in season, but he has. Clearly, losing to the 2-win Cardinals, 2 wins at the time, was too much for Mark Murphy to bear. Although I got an interesting text from someone inside the organization after the game because I said, I literally just texted them and went, Jesus. That was my only text. And they responded, well, someone has to coach the team, don't they? So that tells you right there that there was a big-time disconnect between Mike McCarthy and everything else that was going on in the building. Aaron Jones, 3 carries in the second half. I mean, that's fireable right there, right? Why did Rodgers shave? I love that everything going on in the Packers universe right now, and someone needs to know why Aaron Rodgers shaved. Good question. I don't know. What does this tell you about Mark Murphy? Elijah, that's an excellent question. He's got a little more fortitude than I thought. that he's probably a bit embarrassed by today, and he wants to get going. Because look, the hire he makes, whoever he hires to take Mike McCarthy's place, whoever's next in line, that will be the imprint. That will be the statement of his tenure. Because look, he walked into a great situation. Obviously, the Favre drama was a bump in the road, but they still won a lot of games. Drafted Aaron Rodgers, blah, 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 blah. Won a Super Bowl. He's got Titletown up and going. His legacy is set for the most part, but you look at the hiring of this next head coach, that will cement his legacy. That will be what is remembered, because people don't remember going down a tubing hill or, all the money that was made around Lambeau Field. People are going to remember winning and losing on the football field. And ultimately, whoever Mark Murphy hires as the head coach to succeed Mike McCarthy, that is what people are going to remember, ultimately. How many beers today, Aaron? You know what? This is my first beer today. Banky made me that double old-fashioned during the live stream, and I had some whiskey after that. And then I had a Manhattan at the bar. And then they fired Mike McCarthy, so I had to come home so I could talk to you fine folks. Our season is more to blame on Ted. Most of his picks haven't panned out, but I'm glad Mike is gone. Preston, I don't agree with that. I do agree that Ted Thompson and Russ Ball left the Packers in some dire straits at certain positions, but they have more than enough talent to compete in the NFL and or win those games. I mean, the lack of talent didn't make Ty Montgomery fumble the ball in L.A. The lack of talent didn't make Mike McCarthy call a dive out of the end zone in L.A. Didn't make Aaron Rodgers miss the rise and fire possibility on a slant that turned into a safety. Didn't make Aaron Jones fumble the ball in New England. Didn't make Mike McCarthy punt on 4th and 2 in Seattle. You put all those things together, it's that's not on Ted Thompson. Ted Thompson, while the end of his tenure was disappointing, there's no doubt about it, he left them more than enough to win football games in the NFL. Mike McCarthy just squandered it again and again and again. So that's why he's fired. You've mentioned Joe Witt as one of your favorite candidates. Do you think there's any likelihood? No, I don't. I love Joe. I think he's going to be a head coach in the NFL someday. I would be absolutely shocked if he was given any serious consideration in Green Bay. Rodgers needs to throw more 50-50 balls. I tend to agree, but I don't think that's ever going to happen. We've been through this cycle 100 times with Rodgers. When he's playing poorly, people say he needs to take more chances, etc. He's never going to do that. It's just not who he is. He's won 2 league MVPs by not throwing 50-50 balls. It's just who he is. He's never going to do it. And I do find it funny that this week at his locker, he was asked, is it time to take more chances? And he said, oh, yeah. And you saw it today. He didn't take more chances. Barely. And, can I just say, where was Jake Kummerow today? Kummerow had 1 catch, and it was awesome on a great triple move, basically, on a route there. He did the out, and then the up, and then the comeback catch. We got MVS out there. We got EQ out there. Both of them dropping footballs. Jake Kummerow can't get some love? UW Whitewater, Touchdown Jesus can't get some love? Get Kummerow involved. That's all I'm saying. Does Philbin get a look at head coach if we win out? I would be very surprised. But you never know. If the guys respond to him, his coaching, etc., and they look like a totally different team, and all of a sudden they're crazy productive, maybe. I think the whole staff will be changed over after the season, Steve. That's where I tend to agree. I think there will be a cleaning of the house, and I know people want to retain Mike Pettin. I love Pettin as a coach, but I think ultimately will be they're going to bring somebody else in, and they're going to get to hire their whole staff. I could be wrong. Lord knows I was wrong today when I said I don't think Mike gets fired today or this week, but there we are. Will one of the first two first-rounders be a quarterback? It's quite possible. You look, Corey Behnke has been calling for it all year. You look at when Aaron Rodgers was drafted. Only person who can answer that question is Brian Gutekunst. Adams dropped balls as well. Yes, he did. Lots of balls dropped today. Not by Jake Kummerow, though. Caught his only target. Joe Lombardi. Tiffany, I get asked about Joe Lombardi a lot. I got some tweets, I got some emails. My only thing with Lombardi is he did not look great as a play caller in Detroit. In fact, he got fired from that job as offensive coordinator in Detroit. And clearly that job was given to Jim Bob Cooter, who is still there. I like Joe Lombardi as a coach. I thought he kind of got a raw deal in Detroit. I'd be surprised if he got looks as a head coach. Maybe he gets looks as an offensive coordinator. But again, his track record in Detroit would suggest that doesn't happen. We may have lost, but it feels like a win. Oh, no. Katie says, I think Mike McCarthy deserves more respect than getting fired today. I tend to agree. That's why I thought they wouldn't do it. Clearly, Mark Murphy, pretty upset / frustrated with the loss to the 2-win Cardinals. Now 3 wins. I think it's all about getting ahead of the hiring cycle. That's got to be, more than anything what they want to do. Because as someone within the organization mentioned to me, if they keep Mike and they make one phone call anywhere around the league, it's out in a second. So rather than deal with all of that, fire Mike, put Philbin in as your interim head coach, and then make your calls. Because now everyone knows you're looking for a head coach. Richard, best birthday present for Aaron Rodgers. I said earlier, start of the video. Clearly Murphy wanted to give him his present on his birthday. Should have waited till the end of the season. He deserves so much. Ivan, we just discussed that. I mean, I agree, but to quote Clint Eastwood in Unforgiven, deserves got nothing to do with it. Could Murphy's job be on the line too? Not yet. Big picture, this is his job. This is him doing his job. I mean, it was no doubt that Mike McCarthy needed to go. Everyone saw that. I mean, the relationship between him and Rodgers had grown so bad. It was so toxic. They had just paid Rodgers, so Rodgers wasn't going anywhere. So clearly, Mike McCarthy needed to go. So Mark Murphy has done that bit of the job, and now he needs to make the decision that will define his tenure, which is who is the next head coach. Now, undoubtedly, he will receive input from around the building, personnel. Most likely, the biggest voice will be Brian Gutekunst, but ultimately, it is Mark Murphy's call, and this will define his legacy. Nagler for head coach, Banky for OC. Nobody wants that. Although, Banky for OC I'm down with, because then it would be dink and dunk, and that's what they should have been doing all along. Think they told him last week if he loses another, he'd be gone? I doubt it. I mean, I can't say for sure, but I'd be very surprised if they gave him any indication. Lovey Smith. That would be brilliant. I got a pic of the Mike McCarthy Way sign in Ashwaubenon before it gets ripped down. Now, come on. It shouldn't be ripped down. I mean, I know you're kind of joking, whatever, but look, Mike McCarthy won a lot of football games with the Packers. And I know, it's because of Aaron Rodgers. Yes, and Mike McCarthy made Aaron Rodgers. Mike McCarthy turned around Brett Favre. Mike McCarthy guided them to a Super Bowl victory. And within a Brian Bostic brain fart of another. So I get people are down on McCarthy. He has certainly run his course in Green Bay, but don't dismiss him like that. Mike McCarthy, with the benefit of time, will be looked at as one of the best head coaches ever in Green Bay. And I understand people are upset right now. I get it, but have a little respect. I mean, the guy brought you a Lombardi, one of 13 within the organization, and a bunch of those were won by 2 dudes. So let's chill on completely burying Mike McCarthy today. What has Mark Murphy done for the Packers? Anything? John, he's guided them through the Favre thing, which he was bumbling at most of. But I think the development of Titletown is very important. That's something he's shepherded and overseen. Long term, as far as viability for the franchise and seeing, them survive throughout the next couple decades, that's what Titletown's all about. And he's overseen that. He's done a good job. That doesn't just happen. As much as people want to say, it's like play Monopoly, build hotels, etc., it's a little more complicated than that. Ultimately, though, as I keep saying, none of that means anything if he screws up this next hire of a head coach. You're right. He was one of the best. He was. Aaron, that's all I got. What's up, Sherry? How are you? Do you think the SI story is based on good solid facts or a lot of heresy? Well, I'll tell you this. There were several quotes in there from unnamed sources that I have heard before from probably the same sources. They were gripes and or arguments and or shots at certain people that I have heard throughout the last 2 years. So I'm pretty sure she talked to the same people I've talked to and or have been talking to, whether it's people still within the organization or people who have left the organization. I think a lot of that is pretty spot on. Now, some of it undoubtedly got to be taken with a grain of salt because not a lot of it, but some of those quotes were people, and I'm always wary of people with knowledge of the thinking of the organization or people within the organization. Knowledge of the thinking is always something to kind of take with a grain of salt, but a lot of those quotes were very familiar, and I think more than not, that's a pretty spot-on representation in that SI story. Mike McCarthy was an excellent example of what it meant to be a Packer. I agree. You look at everything he did from A, bringing a championship home, B, never, ever, ever, outside of maybe one or two examples, ever disparaging his own players in the media, ever. Never, ever rising to the bait from his passive-aggressive quarterback. Petulance be damned. Mike McCarthy never rose to it, and he was always a class act in public. Now, he may have ripped guys behind the scenes. Sure, he may have lit into the team at times. Absolutely. But the guy was a class act, both on and off the field, and he represented the Packers very, very well. I hope Bruce Arians is our next head coach. Well, Tony, he has said he would only come back for one team, and it wasn't the Packers, so maybe not. McCarthy did a good job while he was there, but it was time for a change. That is a perfect encapsulation of Mike McCarthy's tenure. He was a very good coach for a very long time, but it was certainly time to go. All right, everybody, I'm going to have to jump. Thank you, everybody. I got drinking to do. Make sure you're checking Cheesehead TV for all the latest. I saw Zach already has a story up. We'll have everything throughout the evening, any other developments that happen. Cheeseheadtv.com. Check it out. Thanks a lot, everyone. Have a good night.